De Koning team boss, Patrick Lefevere, has said publicly that Evenepoel is too fat this week. Do we think that's fair?
Was that actually words he used, fat or overweight?
I think it was too fat, yeah.
Okay, the language is interesting as well.
To come out and say that about a young rider, about a 19-year-old rider publicly, where do we stand on that? Do we think that's a little bit unfair?
Yeah.
I mean,
I'll be honest with you. I mean, I've got a lot of admiration for Patrick Lefevere, but sometimes he's a bit of a throwback. But I admire him. I mean, look at the success that he's garnered within that team with Brian Holm, the experience at director level. So they're clearly doing something right. But quite often you see it. Do you remember Oleg Tinkov publicly slating the different end of the scale, but publicly slating Peter Sagan, and then Peter Sagan went on to win the world, etc. Although Peter Sagan is older, is far more mature. When you're 19 years of age, I think that's quite a lot. I think that's out of order. I know, because we talked about before we came on air. The focus on being light as a rider, at elite level these days.
Yeah, it creates a lot of problems for riders.
Yeah, I mean, it can lead to depression. It can lead to things worse than that. So yeah, I'm happy to call that out. If that's what you said, I think that's out of order.
Yeah, and Patrick tends to make kind of big, bold statements in order to put someone in their place, really. And obviously, I remember it was the last year they were touting him as the next Eddie Merckx. I've met him once. He seems like a lovely kid. He's got great parents and that. But, one reason may be that he's come in and he kind of thinks he's it a bit and they want to just sort of take him down a peg. We don't know the full
story, do we? That could
be... Patrick, is sometimes... Because at the same time, he'll defend his elder riders, the likes of Ilio,
of course,
over the stuff that happened early in the season in Argentina. So it kind of doesn't add up, his behaviour, Patrick, sometimes. But that's him, and I think... It's just the fact that he's done it publicly. We're here talking about it. It's not great for a young 19-year-old kid. The Belgian press will get hold of it. You have to think of his parents. Have they made the right? We're only in March, and should he have stayed? Should he have gone to this team? Are they paying him a lot of money and expect more of him? It's not the best man management, is it? When we've just been talking about,
and he's been riding well. I mean, although for such a young rider, he's got a lot of followers on social media and stuff, and he's got his own merchandise range. So there's quite a lot going on for a rider who's yet to properly prove himself at that elite level.
He started well at San Juan as well.
But he started well. Yeah, he was third in the time trial at San Juan, and rode a hell of a lot on the front, looking after Julian Alaphilippe's aspirations in that race. So we don't know what's happened behind the scenes. Maybe something has happened. Maybe there's been a bit of a swag, a bit of arrogance. We don't know. I'm kind of speculating.
Maybe it was a throwaway comment.
Filippo Pozzato at Fassa Bortolo, when he went back in 2003, Giancarlo Ferretti did a similar thing. He's the only rider,
to go from junior to pro.
Giancarlo Ferretti did a similar thing and publicly called out Pozzato and said he's too flash, he's too this, he's too that. And it's an old school kind of tactic going back to sort of football years of sort of Brian Clough and that, really, of kind of, and when we think what's happened in football, because I have to talk about this a lot in my other job, in terms of Mourinho losing dressing rooms and the players being more powerful than managers now, cycling's still kind of stuck in the dark ages. It should be like that. The managers are there for a reason. But it's kind of how football used to be, the manager kind of making, his public statement about a rider and in order to put him in his place. But time will tell, and as Matt said, we don't really know the full ins and outs of it.
Do we think with the peloton as a whole, there is too much emphasis on power to weight ratio?
Well, it's just part and parcel of cycling now. The bikes are getting lighter, the wheels are getting lighter, the handlebars are getting smaller. Everything is about speed now. And watts, and it's all about power to weight. It's simple maths, isn't it? If you're 68 kilos as opposed to 71 and you can hold 430 watts for half an hour, you'll go so much faster. And so that will project you into a higher place in a Grand Tour or on a summit finish or whatever. So unless it's managed properly with proper professional nutritionists in a team that guide you through it, people end up getting eating disorders that try and do it off their own back and stuff.
And the thing is, you don't. I remember. I could get pretty ripped, but that didn't start happening until I was about 23 years of age. You carry weight differently. Your physiology changes. Without knocking the lad, he's a boy. You look at him. He looks like a boy.
Road, really,
he's a boy stroke young man. He's not only 19 years of age, just out of the junior ranks. And generally, young lads, unless they're really out of the ordinary, carry a little bit of extra weight anyway. But I think he just looks like a normal lad on a bike. 3 years ago was playing elite football. So he looks a bit different. He looks like a gymnast or a boxer or something on a bike at the moment. But as I say, without blowing it out of proportion, we don't know what the background is. Maybe, as Brad said, it's an old school way of putting him in his place. Perhaps there's been a bit too much attitude on board. I don't know. But it is a rather unorthodox way of trying to pull somebody back into line, especially in the current climate of trying to look after the mental welfare of young riders.
Brad, you went into the 2009 Tour, of course, that much lighter than you might usually would be in an effort to get on the podium or an effort to take yellow. Is that sort of institutionalisation with diet and the way you approach food, has that stuck with you?
To a degree. I think I've let go of it a little bit now. I'm 2.5 years into retirement, but initially it does stick with you. And I had a transition period where I went back to the track.
Yeah.
So we were promoted to be a bit heavier anyway. But if you come straight out of a Grand Tour and you retire, as Vuelta last race, and you're going from your prime 69 kilos, you will start piling weight on pretty quick. So I did have a transition period, but certain things do stick with you forever. If I ever sit down at a table with my family or wherever, I always take the centre of the bread out. It's just a habit.
It's proper old school.
Proper old school. Take the centre of the bread out of a roll.
Yeah.
So you're just left with a crust, because you used to have this kind of what was the dough of a bread roll.
Yeah.
In France, they used to say, why don't you eat that? And they used to take it and put it in a glass of water, and it used to expand. They say, blocks your legs. Look, imagine that in your stomach.
I'm the same.
It's just like these little things,
Centre of a baguette at breakfast, strip all that stuff out and just have the crispy bit on the outside. I'm the same. That's a bit wrong, really, isn't it?
Yeah.